And now another alert, breaking news out of North Korea. An American college student from the University of Virginia is being held by the North Korean government at this hour. The State Department says we're working to learn more about what happened here. We spoke earlier with Republican presidential candidate Marco Rubio and got first his reaction. Joined now by Republican presidential candidate, Florida Senator Marco Rubio. Senator, good morning. Good to have you with us today. News that the North Koreans have taken a student from the University of Virginia. He's a junior there. His name is Otto Warmbier, that they say he has committed hostile acts. What do you do in this situation?
Well, first of all, we don't know all the facts, so let's just say that. But it would not surprise me if this is exactly what's happened. I said this a few days ago. There is now a price on the head of every American abroad because the president has shown, President Obama has shown that he will make trades with enemies and with enemies of the United States and foreign governments who take Americans hostage. So, an act against the state in North Korea is almost anything. And so it is. And so obviously I would advise people to travel to North Korea for any reason. But that being said, this would not surprise me if this is what's happening, because it is now clear that if you take an American, Barack Obama will cut a deal with you. All right, but what would you do? I mean, as president, your options are fairly limited.
They are limited. The Swedish are apparently trying to negotiate something since we don't have any diplomatic ties with this country. But what can you do?
I think, well, your options are quite limited, and that's why I would not advise anyone to go to North Korea. The man who governs North Korea is a lunatic. We already have existing sanctions. I believe those sanctions should be increased irrespective of this case. We would use every measure available to us to try to gain his freedom. But ultimately, there's not much you can do at this stage. But what we're not going to do is continue to these trades that actually allow for this sort of thing to happen. It's an incentive for foreign governments and enemies of the United States to take Americans hostage.
John Kerry talking about the Iran deal and was asked about whether or not any of that money is going to end up in the hands of terrorists, essentially. And here's what he said.
You know, to some degree, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every component of that can be prevented, but I can tell you this. Right now, we are not seeing the early delivery of funds going to that kind of endeavor at this point in time. I'm sure at some point some of it will.
Yeah, I mean, not some of it, a lot of it. I mean, Iran is not going to use this money to build schools and bridges. They have been the biggest sponsor of Hezbollah ever, so they're going to continue to fund them. Obviously, they're propping up Assad. But they're also going to use it, for example, to send the Quds Force to all parts of the world to kind of create the ability to create terrorist attacks if Iran is ever attacked. They use these asymmetrical means of terrorist attacks around the world as a way of striking back against any country that would strike them. So you're going to continue to see them spread their reach into the Western Hemisphere and into Europe. You're going to see them sponsor Hezbollah. You're going to see them prop up Assad. And you're going to see them build up their own military and ultimately, I believe, acquire nuclear weapons.
In this deal, you know, some sort of presumption or that if the money starts to flow to the wrong direction, the deal is over.
Right.
And there's an attempt to claw back.
Yeah, well, again, the deal's going to be over when I'm president. On my first day in office, we're going to cancel the deal with Iran. That said, I have no explanation for Barack Obama's foreign policy other than the fact that he believes America is an arrogant global power and we need to be cut down to size. And so that's why he cuts deals with enemies and betrays allies like Israel and goes around the world apologizing for America and then guts our military. This is the Barack Obama foreign policy. John Kerry carries the water for that. And they were obsessed with this deal. They would have signed this deal on virtually any terms. That's how badly they wanted it. And Iran knew that, and they took advantage.
New magazine, National Review, out with more than 20 conservative writers. The title on the front cover is Against Trump. It's really an unprecedented move by a political publication to try to really trash one of the people who's running for president. What do you think about it?
Well, I haven't read it, obviously. I'm actually a very big admirer of National Review, but I haven't read that edition. I guess it's a new one. I would say two things. One, I don't think Donald is running as a movement conservative. I don't think he's ever said that. And it's clear he's not. I mean, what he's running in is against someone who's a populist, who's upset about the direction of this country, as am I, as are millions of Americans. But we also have to know exactly what we're going to do about it. And so I would just say one of the reasons I feel so strongly about my candidacy is I offer the Republican Party in this campaign, I think we're someone who offers consistent conservatism, real conservatism, but also the ability to beat Hillary Clinton, because we cannot let her win. At the end, we need to remember that Hillary Clinton cannot be elected. She is disqualified from being commander-in-chief. She lied about Benghazi. She doesn't know. She recklessly stored high-level classified information on her personal server. Someone like that can never be commander-in-chief. We must beat her, and I will.
All right. So the current thinking, Ted Cruz says, look, in the end, there's going to be a conservative standing and outsider standing, a populist, as you say, perhaps Donald Trump. And he says, you know, Donald Trump is now that establishment guy. You've got Bob Dole, you've got Trent Lott, you've got the governor of Iowa, all lining up now behind Donald Trump. So he says basically that category is filled. So what happens with you guys?
That's not accurate. They're not lining up behind Donald Trump. They're just telling people their opinion about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz is an incredibly calculated individual. Every position he ever takes is politically calculated. His positions on immigration, that's why they've changed. His positions on ethanol, he says he's against ethanol in New Hampshire and for it in Iowa. His position on the trade deal, he was for the trade deal. He wrote an article in the Wall Street Journal. He stuck by his guns in Iowa. He said he would not stand for ethanol subsidies in Iowa, and he got some credit for that. Well, no, but he had a guy come up to him on the line and ask him about it, and he kind of changed his position a little bit last week or a couple weeks ago under pressure. I saw him change his vote on the floor of the Senate on crop insurance. He voted against it, came back 15 minutes later after someone told him, hey, this is going to hurt you in Iowa, and changed his vote. So my point is he's incredibly calculated, and this thing he's saying now about Trump is part of that calculation. And look, I'm a consistent conservative. I know where I stand on the issues. If facts change, like, for example, today on immigration, the #1 issue has to be to keep ISIS out of America. So if fact changes, you change your approach. But Ted is incredibly calculated politically on every position he takes, and this is part of that calculation. In the end, it sounds like for Ted Cruz, anyone who's not for him is part of the so-called establishment. Meanwhile, the establishment has spent like $20 million attacking me. So I'm going to continue to move forward on this campaign. I feel great about our chances. We're going to win the nomination. I'm very confident in that, and I'll tell you this, if I'm our nominee, we are going to beat Hillary Clinton.
Senator Marco Rubio, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Good to have you.